Hey guys, back again here. I've been trying to think of how to do this video for a couple months now. I want to go over the jackets that I purchased for backpacking over the last couple years and kind of show the progression to try to help anyone out there who might be trying to go through the same process to find, a better, lighter, warmer jacket. Maybe help them from having the same mistakes or pitfalls that I did by buying way too many jackets. I've got a stack of jackets here on my right hand side. I'm going to go through them. This is probably going to be a little bit of a long video. The first little bit I'm going to kind of walk through my progression, and then the second piece I'll kind of go into each jacket. So if you don't want to hear the progression, you can fast forward till you see the kind of graphic with the different weights of the jackets, and then listen from there, and I'll talk through kind of my likes and dislikes about the different jackets. Again, this isn't a review of the jackets. I will go over some of the aspects of them. There's a lot of other videos out there that review each individual jacket and goes over every single zipper and weight. I'm not going to do that. This is really about my experiences with the jackets. I find for myself, I don't see enough videos on YouTube with definitely the experiences that people had, more of just kind of going over the jacket itself. So I'm trying to put my experiences out there in hopes that that will help somebody. It started out about 10 years ago. I bought a REI 650 down. I think it was called the Generator jacket. Crazy warm jacket. I've used that for camping for the last decade. Always kept me warm. I've never really been cold in it, down into the teens, but it's really heavy. It weighs 24 ounces. I've taken it backpacking a couple times back when my base weight was in the 20s. I just decided, a couple years back, that I wanted to start going lighter. And so the next jacket that I bought, Costco had a sale on the Patagonia down sweater. It's a really warm jacket. It's probably the second warmest jacket that I own. It was significantly lighter at somewhere in the 14 ounce range, but it definitely didn't solve all my problems. I still found myself getting a little colder in this than I did in the big heavy monster jacket. So I decided I wanted to try to find something that was, the same weight or lighter, but that had a hood. So then I bought the Bauer Microtherm Storm Down jacket. And it does have a hood, and it weighs just half an ounce or so lighter than the other jacket, the Patagonia down sweater. And it does have the hood, but I found it to be a little bit colder than that jacket. And I'll kind of go into some of the specs, a little bit of why I think that is. And then after that, I wanted to go really light, so I purchased the Mont Bell X-Lite down jacket with no hood. This jacket is crazy light, 5.5 or so ounces. And actually is relatively warm for its weight, but it does not block the wind at all. Any wind at all will go through this thing. But I'll talk more about that. And then I decided I wanted a hood. So I bought the ever famous Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisper hooded jacket. And also doesn't really block the wind that well. It does a little bit better job than the Montbell does. Had a hood and was relatively light. And then this year I picked up what I thought was going to be kind of the end-all be-all, kind of middle of the road of those two. It's the Mont Bell X-Lite Anorak, also hooded. It's got the kangaroo pocket in the front, and weight-wise comes in between the two of them. So that's the progression of my jackets. Now I'll kind of go into the specifics of them a little bit. So I grabbed myself a little bit of a cheat sheet here so I could get the information accurate. I'll start off by talking about the two that I do not take camping or backpack anymore, and that's the Patagonia down sweater and the Bauer Microtherm Storm Down jacket. They're great jackets, and if I was looking for a jacket to wear during the winter to work, or just go out, to shopping or whatever, I would pick up either one of those any day. Ultimately, they're just heavy. They're both over 13 ounces. The Patagonia down sweater large that I have, non-hooded version, is 13.8 ounces. and the Eddie Bauer is 13.4 ounces. They're both 800 fill. They both have a thicker material on the outside, and I don't know what denier they are, but they're both thicker. They both stop the wind pretty darn well. But because of that extra thickness and the super robust zippers and everything, they're just heavy. I decided ultimately I wanted to be lighter and have a little bit more flexibility. And if I wanted wind protection, I'll bring a wind jacket like a Mont Bell or a Patagonia. So I just don't, I don't wear them anymore. The Patagonia is pretty boxy. I'm a thin guy, as I've said in previous videos, and as you can see, I'm like 6'1", 150 or so pounds. So I need a little bit more of a slimmer fit. The Patagonia is really boxy on me. I still wear it a lot during the winter. In fact, it's probably my go-to jacket most during the winter times when it's in the upper 30s or low 40s. The Eddie Bauer, I usually wear when I go hiking at night, just so that it's just bright red and it's easy to see. But I do no camping or backpacking with either of those jackets anymore. Of the three remaining one, I'll talk a little bit about the lightest of the bunch, which is the X-Lite Mont Bell down jacket, the older version. This jacket is several years old. I actually picked it up on eBay. I don't usually pay full price for anything. I pay for like everyone else out there. I'm always looking for a deal. I got some pretty crazy deals on some of these jackets. I think I paid about 120 bucks for the down sweater, which was pretty good, brand new. And then the Eddie Bauer was about $135 or something in that range. I paid $39 for this Mont Bell on eBay. It was used, but it was pristine. There was no stains or anything on it. I recommend that you guys, troll eBay often, and you'll come across some pretty killer deals. I'll talk about the deal I got also on the Ghost Whisperer. But anyway, this Mont Bell jacket, it weighs 5.8 ounces. And this is a size large, and it's 900 fill, DWR on the outside, but not on the down itself. So I would not recommend bringing this jacket too frequently into highly humid conditions. I've seen some people wearing the Mont Bell jackets on the AT. I'm always curious about that, how they do in that humidity out there. On the PCT or maybe even the CDT, if you're doing a through hike, they're probably fine. I do mine's all for West Coast Sierra deserts and stuff, so non-treated down's fine for me. But the reason I ended up giving up this jacket as far as my primary go-to jacket is it's very short for the size. You can see in the pictures, and I'll put some pictures up, that it barely comes down to my waist, and this is a size large. It's very boxy, so there's a lot of spare room in it. And because it's so light, there's no pockets, no hood, and there is no drawstring closure at the bottom. And so it just kind of lays on you as a jacket. What I do use this for a lot is I will, if I'm just going out for a day hike or something and I just want to have something in case I get stuck out somewhere or whatever, I'll throw it in my bag because it is pretty warm even with all those kind of downsides. But I generally will not take this as my go-to jacket. But I will talk a little bit about at the end of this what I do use this for that I think is pretty creative, and it's something that other people might want to look into if they have some extra jackets, especially some light ones like this one. The Mountain Hardwear jacket, I will say this is probably, of the three that I take backpacking, I will say it's probably the warmest I have. It's really hard to judge perception because they're all pretty close, but especially between this and the Mont Bell Anorak. I would say the craftsmanship on this is better than the Mont Bell jackets. It's slimmer, so it fits me much better. The material feels pretty good. They've got an interesting 7D by 10D pardon me, material. Everything about it is pretty quality, to be honest with you. And it weighs in, this is also a medium also, and it's 7.8 ounces, also 800 fill, but this is DWR treated down, so it does a little bit better with either perspiration or rain. And because it's got that slightly heavier gauge material, it does block wind a little bit better, but the wind still finds its way through this thing. This definitely is one of my go-tos for backpacking. It packs down small, it keeps me warm, it's got a hood for sleeping in my quilt. And so I do go to this jacket sometimes. The Mont Bell Anorak, which is the newest one, it's the only one on here that I actually paid full price for, and I don't remember what that was. I think it's like 219 bucks or something. I got it on a whim because I was starting to ounce count, and this shaved off 2.2 ounces off of my weight. This is a large version. It's also boxy. Maybe not quite as boxy as the X-Lite down, but I think they're pretty darn close. And it's a little bit longer than the original X-Lite down jacket, which I like more. It does have the drawstring at the bottom, which is nice. It does have pockets, even though it's the kangaroo pocket. Sometimes I actually like that because I can get the warmth from both hands at the same time. But it's not good for storing anything. You can't zip them up at all. The hood is not really adjustable in any way, but it's a pretty good jacket. The material is really crinkly. I'm sure that's picking up on the camera. If you are all annoyed by the sound of, you know, crinkly material, like in your rain jackets or whatever, don't get this jacket. It's very crinkly. I'm hoping as time goes on that it'll become less crinkly. And I really only notice it if I'm trying to sleep in it and I'm rolling around. It crinkles a lot. Anyone that's got an X-Lite out there knows what crinkly sleeping sounds like. Of all the jackets, this is the one I go to most. I think it's the kind of best middle of the road jacket. The warmth is there. I would say it's almost as warm, if not as warm, as the Mountain Hardwear jacket. I would say the fit and finish of it isn't quite as good. And I'll show you some pictures of like the loft on them when I talk about that a little bit. But it is my go-to jacket. I use this more than anything else right now, with one exception, and that's if I think it's going to be colder than about upper 30s or low 40s where I'm going. If I think it's going to be higher, colder than that, here's what I'll generally do: is I'll generally bring the Mountain Hardwear jacket, and I'll also bring the Mont Bell X-Lite Original. And between the two of them, it's about 13.5 or so ounces, maybe 14 ounces. But it gives me so much flexibility of what I can do, especially if I think it's going to get, you know, into mid to lower 30s. I have a 30-degree quilt from Katabatic, and it's actually a warm 30-degree quilt based on all the specs, and I would agree with that. I tend to sleep cold, so I have to take about 10 degrees off of anything that I sleep in. These jackets, you know, all of them keep me pretty warm into maybe the low 40s without moving around at best. On their own, you know, if I have other things with it, gloves or hood or whatever, but these are all about, you know, low 40s for me without getting too starting to get actually cold. But when I'm sleeping, or if I'm just sitting around camp and it's, you know, gets into low 30s or upper 20s, is I will actually put the Mountain Hardwear on, and then I'll put the X-Lite down jacket over the top of it, because the X-Lite's boxier and the Mont Bell is slimmer. There's not a lot of compression going on. That really the only place I notice compression is in my shoulders. And so it's like having, you know, a much thicker jacket. I think between the two of them, they are slightly different. One's a 900 fill, one's a 800 fill. But between the two of them, you're looking at almost 5 ounces, 4.6 ounces of fill. So it's crazy warm. And if I start getting hot, I can take one off and leave the other one on. The other thing it lets me do, and this is going to sound silly, but I can actually take this X-Lite and I'll sleep in my Mountain Hardwear up top, and I can take this and either wrap it around my waist, zip it up around my waist in my quilt to add some extra heat. And since I'm skinny, I can actually shove my legs into the arms and stick my feet out the ends, and actually have this almost like a down pant in my bag. And so I'll have, you know, 60-70% coverage of my entire body in that quilt. And it allows me to take that 30-degree quilt down into the upper 20s and still be relatively warm. Sometimes I'll have a beanie on also, and I wear, you know, base layers like everyone else. I use the Patagonia thermal weight hooded which I like because it comes all the way up to my chin, so it's really only this part that's exposed. But it keeps me crazy warm, and it sounds silly and whatever, but to have this 5.5 extra ounces or so of insurance in my pack on the when I think it might be colder, it's super flexible. So I would rather do that than take one thicker jacket or whatever. And the fact that I can use it for sleeping and cover my lower half with it is actually a bonus. I do have a new jacket coming in the mail, and once it comes, I'll do a first impressions and maybe a long-term review, and that is the Enlighten Equipment Torrid Apex jacket. I've been wanting to try a synthetic jacket for the winter, so I should be getting it here in a few weeks, and I'll be able to test it throughout the winter through some hiking, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of winter backpacking. I got it mainly for the wet, but it's supposedly, from what I've read, a pretty darn warm jacket, so I'm pretty excited to get that. Anyway, I wanted to, one last thing about these 3 jackets, and I'll put up some photographs here so you can see about the fill. As you can see in the pictures, there's pretty even coverage in the baffles on the Mountain Hardwear jacket. You can see the light all the way through. That's a light. That's not any sort of like thermal camera or anything. It's just a table light. But you can see that there is pretty even coverage, not a lot of cold spots in the baffles. There is, some you can see where the threads are, a slightly more light coming through there, but not a ton. Then on the X-Lite down jacket, you can see where it's really dark in the centers of the baffles where there's a lot of down, and then you can see it gets lighter on the edges. And so you could think there might be some more cold spots there where it's lighter, but it's not that much lighter, honestly, than what's in the Mountain Hardwear jacket. And so I haven't noticed a ton of cold spots with this jacket. It's just got the other deficiencies that I talked about. The one that, again, strangely enough, is my go-to jacket is the kind of the worst of the 3. You can see there's a lot more material on the edges, and in the one picture that I'll put up, you can see that there's actually quite a few holes where they've sewn through, and you can actually see light directly through. Where, yep, they're small holes, but you know what? I bet you air's getting through there, and I do feel it in the wind. And so I'll usually, like I said, wear like a wind shirt or something over the top of it. And the material on these is so small that I would not be doing much aggressive without anything on top of it, to be honest. So ultimately, I would say that the Mountain Hardwear, Ghost Whisperer, and the Mont Bell Anorak, very similar in warmth to me. The feel of the material of the Mont Bell is a little bit better for me, and the sound of the material, the crinkliness of the material is a little better. But I just find myself gravitating back to the Mont Bell every single time, except in those super cold conditions. So the Mont Bell just kind of sits on the Mountain Hardwear just kind of sits on my shelf for most of my trips. All of my trips this summer, last spring, and this one that I just had in the fall, I only took the Mont Bell. So anyway, hope that was useful at all. I know this was a long video, and I appreciate if you stuck all the way around to the end. If you have any questions about any of these, or you want any other pictures, happy to take some pictures and throw them up on my Instagram, and then just link them to you in the comments. That's not a problem. Or if you just have any questions about the products, I do actually have some other pieces of gear, jackets and whatnot that I did not talk about. I'm a vest guy. I have a lot of vests too, so I layer with those quite a bit as well, but that's a different video, I think. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please post them, and have a good day.